There was a tweet on Wednesday from the Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa. "Let all the world hear our voice," it said. "Zimbabwe is open for business." And that was the message that he was trying to hammer home at the World Economic Forum in Davos, up in the Alps. He went there showing that he's ready to turn a page in Zimbabwean history. But is he? He sat down for an interview with the BBC's Michelle Hussein, and he refused during the interview to apologise directly for the killings in the western region of Matabeleland that occurred in the 1980s. Tens of thousands died, and he was Minister for National Security. The dead were mostly ethnic and Ndebele's, who were accused of backing Mr Mugabe's rival, Joshua Nkomo.
I understand that those are the figures that are being flighted, but on the ground, I don't think that is the correct figure being flighted in that area. The most important thing is that what has happened has happened. What can we do about the past? We've put up a commission to deal with that issue. That should not stop us to have a better future, where all the communities should be united, should cooperate, should love each other, should work together. This is the message which we have. We are more worried now about how, in the future, we should have a united Zimbabwe.
The figure of 20,000 deaths came from the Catholic Commission for Justice and Peace. You could just apologise for what happened at that point, and that would be a powerful signal that Zimbabwe is truly moving into an era where it has acknowledged the past properly.
In my view, there's nothing more than me putting legislation where a commission headed by a vice president and most eminent persons in Zimbabwe to deal with that issue and make recommendations.
Well, that was the new president sitting down with the BBC's Michelle Hussein in Davos. How have the comments gone down in Zimbabwe? Let's speak now to Nyari Mashayamombe, who's a human rights activist based in Harare. Welcome to the programme, Nyari. Now, the international media often focus on that big issue of the massacres back in the early 1980s. Just tell us how much of an issue that still is in country and whether what he says can put the issue behind him.
Thank you very much and good morning, world. As human rights activists, I think we take what he said as a commitment to dealing with the issue, understanding the politics of our country as well. Hearing him speak, it doesn't come to me like he refused to apologize, but rather he has put a mechanism. I think in his explanation, it actually indicates that I have put a whole commission. He's actually signed a bill into effect urgently as one of the things. So we see it as something that is put in as a priority, something that is, and also he has appointed a whole VP. You must understand that me as a human rights activist, we were fighting for a woman vice president, but also to appreciate that while it could have simply been a woman president, vice president for Matabeleland, but him appointing a whole VP to actually be given that assignment, we take it as a commitment from the president. And also we need to understand that it's just not about him rising up and saying sorry on behalf of that government or himself, but it's a whole process because people lost lives. There's a lot of things that were lost. A systematic process is required, and a bill put in place and a commission put in place according to what is done. We feel like it's a way of arriving to that sorry, and we just don't need a mere sorry that he says now. We need a rectification and probably restitution for the victims and survivors. So we take it as something that he's putting in efforts to address the issue.
Right. Now, that is obviously not what he went to Davos wanting to talk about. He wanted to talk about the country being open for business, bearing in mind all the complications and the problems of the indigenization laws and so on and the restrictions on flows of capital. Do you think that Zimbabwe is open for business?
I totally would. He obviously was expecting that because here at home, we made a whole lot of noise about Gukurahundi. We've been demanding that the government addresses him. And to be fair, I think there's been, while he's not responding to all the issues that we're talking about, there's been, some instances where we see that he's responding. And in as far as Zimbabwe being open for business concerned, to be honest with you, as human rights activists, we've seen the suffering of our masses, and we are supporting this government, and we say. I think if he says that Zimbabwe is open for business, as human rights activists, we are saying, yes, it is open for business. We also want to see action around human rights respect. We want to see action around the respect of the Constitution. That includes gender equality as well. But at this point, the man is only 2 months into the presidency. We have optimism that things will turn out the way we want. And as he said in his interview that he's willing to be held accountable from day one, in all fairness, I think we are monitoring him. We are diligent about the issues that matter, but we also want to see more transparency. I would speak about the package that he gave the former presidents, for instance. Many of those decisions are just being made behind doors. We want to know as a nation why we, for instance, is funding chiefs, is giving cars to chiefs, 14 million being spent, for instance, children out of school in Zimbabwe. I mean, so there's a lot of good things that are happening and a lot of things that we are questioning. But to say, is Zimbabwe open for business, would say, yes, we are open for business. We want business to come because it affects the people on the ground. The sanction and everything has affected the standard Zimbabwean. So we are looking forward. When we went to march on the 18th as citizens, as human rights activists and everybody, we were optimistic. We maintain our optimism and we want the world to support him as long as they are also keeping their end of promises to say human rights are being recognized, the rule of law is being recognized in Zimbabwe, constitutionalism is working, issues of gender equality, issues of fairness, even when we're talking about acts, for instance, we're going towards elections, we want to see the opposition being given fair media. For instance, we only have one television station in Zimbabwe. We don't want to just see ZANU-PF people doing their own stuff there. We also want to see opposition being given. We want to see freedom of press and freedom of expression. We don't want to see POSA, the POSA that restricted people from to have freedom of assembly. We want people being able to just, unite freely in peace, get to have their rallies without being harassed by the police. And I think just to finish this, to say, we've been seeing that the police there's been less harassment of citizens. So we think that Zimbabwe is on its way to opening up for business.
That's good to hear. Nyari, many thanks indeed. Nyari Mashayamombe, who's human rights activist based in